Well, hello, Volya Radio listeners and members, and everybody who is here. And let's see, let's do a timestamp. Get that out of the way. It is 10:31 on the East Coast of the United States. It's 17:01 UTC time, and that is important these days because shortly Shapsta and friends will be collecting things in Newbury. I hope I get this right. Anyways, in Newbury on I believe, the 9th of June. So that's a good thing. And in Kiev, it is 1931 minutes. So here we are. I think I got that right. Anyways, fella, you are here. I will get you up. Sorry, I just want to get that timestamp in, and here we go, and there it goes. Okay, hopefully that works the first time. It doesn't always, but let's see what we can do. Excellent. I heard that click. Sounded like somebody coming up as a co-host. Excellent. There we are. FireFella, are you here?
Can you hear me?
I hear you now. Yes, sir.
Oh, right, excellent. Just had to wait for the button to change. That was all. But no, all good here now, James.
Very good. Good to have you with me. Wendy usually does this with me, and I'm thankful that you could come up and cover for her. She's busy. She's on the road or somewhere like that. Anyways, we kind of all know where she is, but nonetheless, we can keep our mouths shut, can't we? Yeah, I think we can, FireFella. Well, it was another busy news day. But maybe we should start out with mentioning again, especially for people who are listening to this in repeats, what this topic is about, FireFella.
Okay, fine. Have you got me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, so disinfolklore is a specific form of disinformation that is made for affecting our moods, intentions, motivations, and attitudes in ways which help the disinfolklorist, which is usually Russia, but can be any malignant entity. The disinfolklore framework permits us to protect ourselves from and understand and interpret malignant information. Volya Radio looks through this lens to support Ukraine and defeat Russia's war of aggression and genocide against Ukraine. There you go.
Thank
Over
you,
to you.
Thank you very much for that. And speaking of decoding and disinfolklore, here is the author of this whole topic, Decoding Trolls. And welcome, Decoding. Good to have you with us this week. I think that we did that introduction. We did our timestamp. What else did we do? We didn't ask anybody to share the space, so I will do that. Please do share the space. It's useful. It gets more people up here. Sometimes it's hard to find us, anywhere on the internet, but because of, problems with, I'm going to say, Twitter. And so, we can help do that. So I will pop it into the nest. But decoding, I think with that, we're ready when you are. And welcome.
Great. Amazing. That was a great interview. That was a great preview or introduction. Thank you very much, FireFella. And for all of you for being here. As you know, I look forward to this every week. So here we are, and I work towards this every week, so it's a great help. And very much enjoyed the show today and yesterday. The last few days have been great shows. And then a tour de force from Will in Accidental Ukrainian the other day. If anyone didn't listen to it, then I highly recommend they do listen to it. His co-host didn't get a word in edgeways, but he did try. But what Will had to say was, as ever, brilliant and very informative. So today I was going to talk about the Starobilsk incident. Some of you might have seen my tweet on that. And I was also going to go through a couple more examples of what I call the Luhansk archive. and the archetypal content of it, and integrated into these particular stories I'm going to tell today will be some of the technical advances which I've made programming this neural network in the past week, which is an amazing experience to try and teach a computer to look for archetypal content, the cultural substrata in information. So I'm Decoding Trolls. I work mainly on disinfolklore.eu, which is my main website, where most of my content is in a highly processed form. Also decodingtrolls.net, disinfolklore.net, and powerofmana.net, which are three parts of the my weekly output. And obviously with Volya Radio, which I listen to every day, and on Twitter a little bit. And today I'm going to talk a bit about this Starobilsk incident, and I'm going to talk using the Disinfolklore analytical method, and I'm also going to talk about some examples from my what I call the Luhansk corpus, which I've been talking about for the last few weeks, and we're in the midst, not even 1/100th of a way through what I have to talk about, this corpus of 10,000 propaganda items that I collected while I worked in a Russia-occupied Ukraine, and between Russia-occupied Ukraine and government-controlled Ukraine between 2015, 2018 in Luhansk, and then afterwards in Dnipro. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is Starobilsk incident. So some of you probably didn't hear about it, but it was a really interesting example for me to apply the Disinfolklore analytical method to it, because the moment I heard the president of the Russian Federation mention a school in Starobilsk, which is a city, a town I know very well. I used to go through it a lot when I lived in Severodonetsk, and so it has that personal connection to me as well. And the moment I heard President Putin talk about it and talk about this, what I call taking this from the archetype, the manufactured wound, basically, it reeked of this, and I recognized the pattern. So I thought, as the English might say, there was something rum about this. So I tuned in to a lot of what I could see. And so I'm going to start the story on the 13th of October, 2025. Russia's defense minister, so 30th of October 2025. So Russia's defense ministry announces in Putin's name that international journalists are invited to come and see for themselves that Ukrainian forces are surrounded in Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, and Kupiansk. The apparatus, which is how I refer to the entire collection of actors operating the Russian Federation. The apparatus offers a 5 to 6 hour ceasefire to enable the tour. The 12th of December 2025, Putin claims at a press conference based on a briefing from Gerasimov that 15 Ukrainian armed forces battalions are blocked inside Kupiansk. 15 battalions. He invites journalists again to come and verify. On the same day, Volodymyr Zelensky turns up in Kupiansk himself, records a video address on his iPhone at the entrance stela. 1.15 kilometers from Russian positions, 500 meters from the gray zone. Deep State map confirms the coordinates. The 22nd of May 2026, the apparatus elevates a strike on occupied Starobilsk to a campaign. Putin calls it a terrorist strike. Peskov calls it a monstrous crime. 6 Russian official spokespersons issue coordinated naming within 12 hours. Russia requests a UN Security Council emergency session. Within 36 hours, 90 missiles and 600 drones land on Kyiv and Bilozerka, as all of us will know, where the Oreshnik fell, and some garages. The Chernobyl Museum was hit. We had an interesting discussion about this on Ming and Joanna's show earlier in the week. I think Lexicon and I were convinced, and indeed I think Ming as well, were convinced that this was a hit on purpose. The Oreshnik, the nut tree or the walnut tree, the nuclear-capable hypersonic missile is fired for the third time in this war. What we're looking at is not three discrete events, which many people will see them as, but not us, and not me through the Disinfolklore analytical method. We're looking at one 8-month campaign elevation doctrine that has been running in continuous deployment since at least last October. The Starobilsk strike of last Thursday is the latest instance, and it's not the first, and it will not be the last. This is Disinfolklore in real time. The thing about the apparatus is that it does not improvise its archetypes. It deploys them again and again on the same template, what looks like news in your morning headlines or on my evening television or in our social media feeds is on closer inspection. The apparatus running the same play it ran last quarter and the quarter before that and the quarter before that. The play I want to walk you through tonight is what I'm going to call for the rest of this episode, the apparatus campaign elevation doctrine. The apparatus campaign elevation doctrine. It is one specific kind of Disinfolklore deployment, the kind that begins with an apparatus invitation to international journalists and ends with a hypersonic missile in Kyiv. The doctrine has a name and a shape and a budget line. And when I talk about Disinfolklore being a narrative form, what I'm talking about is the actor who is the acting president of the Russian Federation. He's an actor, so he's deployed on certain stages at certain times, and he speaks fluent Disinfolklore. And then his Disinfolklore is then ventriloquisted, puppeted through the minds of other and through the voices of other members of the apparatus until it becomes like a cacophony, like a chorus, like a vibration in our brain, until it meets the ears of a child in Kyiv who's suddenly very frightened. That's why I call it Disinfolklore, and the whole operation is a Disinfolklore operation. The budget line is documented. In November of last year, the Jamestown Foundation, a serious grade Western think tank that most of us will be aware of and respect, not a partisan source, published a piece by Yuri Lapayev showing Russia's draft 2026 budget cuts, military spending by $2.4 billion compared to 2025, while raising the state-funded media budget by 54%, $458 million additional dollars. The apparatus is, in plain print, defunding its army to fund its information warfare. Ukraine's foreign minister, Andrei Sybiha, put the same funding on the public record. This is not a hidden doctrinal shift. This is the apparatus that has openly chosen to substitute information warfare for kinetic capability. The campaign elevation doctrine I'm about to walk through is what those $458 million are for. The shape of the doctrine is 3 moves. Move 1, the apparatus invites international journalists to verify an apparatus claim about a Ukrainian territory the apparatus does not actually hold. Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, Kupiansk, Krasnoarmysk, Starobilsk. The invitation is the deployment. The apparatus does not need the journalists actually to arrive. The apparatus needs the invitation to circulate in Western media as evidence that Russia has nothing to hide. Move 2, the apparatus produces its own evidence substrate Telegram distributed photographs from occupier-installed regional leaders, casualty figures from the apparatus human rights commissioners, all actors, framing statements from the apparatus foreign ministers, official namings from the Kremlin press secretary, and at the apex, a head of state, an acting head of state, an actor. He is a stage actor, an acting head of state, personal statement from Putler himself. The evidence substrate is the apparatus's product. Western media absorbs the substrate as if it were independent reporting. It's not. Move 3. With moral cover now installed, the apparatus executes the actual operation, the strike, the barrage, the mass attack on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure. The Western press's headlines treat the execution as retaliation for whatever the stage 1 invitation and evidence substrate had named. The cycle closes. This is the doctrine. 8 months of it now in public view. Let me walk you through how it ran in dates before we get to last Thursday. So, 13th of October 2025, Russia's defense ministry announces that Putler has ordered international journalists, including from Ukraine, to be allowed into Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, and Kupiansk. Note the counter move when President Zelensky, who has the right to do this, ordered his army not to attack a small square kilometer inside Moscow for over a period of 2 hours. So Russia, the announcement says, will halt hostilities for 5 to 6 hours so journalists can confirm the encirclement of Ukrainian forces. Notice this archetype of encirclement of Ukraine sources, cauldron, kettle. For Ukrainians, these are sacred terms because anyone who was in Ukraine in September 2014, just after the first Minsk agreement was signed, will remember the Ilovaisk kettle, where Ukrainians had surrendered, and then they were slaughtered and taken prisoner, and then the same troll happened again in Debaltseve in when after I arrived in Ukraine, after Minsk II was signed, and Debaltseve, which is or was an important railway junction, was inside Ukraine, occupied territory. But the Russian, after signing this agreement, the Russians went on the advance, and then once again they killed a lot of Ukrainian soldiers in a cauldron or a kettle. So even the use of these terms to people who don't pay attention to these things, they won't understand their archetypal content and their historical content. Ukraine's response is immediate and on the record. Georgi Tuki, spokesperson, please forgive my pronouncements. I'm in the same category as Paul Mockers, although I know she's better than me at this point. Spokesperson for Ukraine's foreign ministry warns journalists not to participate. Russia broke the same promise during the battles for Ilovaisk in 2014. A ceasefire offered to allow Ukrainian troops to retreat, which Russia then violated, killing several hundred Ukrainian soldiers in what would become known as the Ilovaisk massacre. And one of my friends lost his lovely restaurateur chef brother, Andrei, in that. The foreign ministry is reminding journalists that this is what Russia's humanitarian offers look like. Ukraine's commander-in-chief, Alexander Syrsky, states publicly that there is no blockade of Ukrainian forces in Pokrovsk or Kupiansk. The encirclement claim is false. The invitation is propaganda. Ukraine's Center for Countering Disinformation publishes the structural analysis. The center surfaces a detail worth dwelling on. The invitations to German journalists come from a man named Vladimir Sergienko, former assistant to Jürgen Schmidt, an AfD member of the German Bundestag. According to public data, Sergienko may have been recruited by the FSB and may be carrying, in my opinion, out assignments for Russian intelligence, in my opinion, under the guise of journalistic activity. The center is naming the channel through which the apparatus is staffing its own substrate of international journalists. Roman Svitin, a retired colonel of the Ukrainian Air Force, gives the operational read in early November. His diagnosis, and I'm paraphrasing, is that the apparatus's invitation has nothing to do with allowing journalists in. It has to do with the apparatus needing an operational pause. The apparatus is stuck in Pokrovsk and Myrnograd. It needs a pause to bring in fresh reserves and form new tactical groups. The journalist invitation is the cover for the pause. Svitin, the main request is a pause. That means the enemy has got itself into trouble. And so this is something all of us who are caught up in the micro and the granular quotidian activities on the battlefield, insofar as we can, as most of us are not in Ukraine or on the front. But by comparison to normal people that we know who don't spend all their time thinking about Ukraine and the war and how we can try and help, we know a lot. And so we understand what's happening on this road, which I drove along a lot between Berdyansk and Melitopol now, and it's kind of breaking through a little bit, but perhaps not. So we can see a pattern between Russia having its proverbial handed to it by Ukraine at the moment, and these information operations, given a pattern of respectability by all these different actors translating the same script into head of state discourse, into diplomatic discourse, is what Lavrov does. Simonian gives lines to all their other propagandists in public, so they don't have to send the email. They know exactly what the official line is to say. So we can see that relationship, and our journalists, we would hope, our newsrooms should be able to see that relationship, but don't always see that relationship. And Svitin, and this is why we have so much to learn from Ukrainians who have been dealing with these structures since 2014, says the main request is a pause. That means the enemy has got itself into trouble. So we're trying to look at the substrate of Putler is inviting journalists in. He's ordering a pause so international journalists can come in. But actually what's really going on underneath it, and this kind of literacy helps us understand structures and data and what's imminent in them, and the archetypes running underneath them. And at the moment, I'm programming a neural network to also recognize these in this particular area in Disinfolklore, which is an interesting process. Now, follow the thread. The apparatus's October to November 2025 deployment is a propaganda cover for operational weakness deployment. So this is what we're seeing at the moment. The apparatus needs the pause more than the apparatus needs the journalists. The apparatus is staged powerful in the framing and operationally stuck in the field. Disinfolklore here is performing the work the apparatus's military cannot perform. 5 weeks later, the 12th of December 2025, same play, different city. Putin claims on the basis of a briefing from Gerasimov, which of course is filmed, that Russia's forces have managed to block around 15 Ukrainian armed forces battalions in the Kupiansk, Uzlovy area. He invites journalists again to come and see the surrounded Ukrainian army units. Same day, President Zelensky turns up in Kupiansk. Again, I'm on record as saying this from early in the war. President Zelensky, he understands this on an instinctual level, because he is an entertainer, because he was part of the entertainment industry. He understands that how you control emotions, how you use certain triggers to perform certain emotions, and therefore he sees Putler, he sees what they're doing in a way that perhaps other world leaders need really smart advisors to help them see, and not many of them are seeing it. I suspect President Macron, who famously did his he did PhD with Paul Ricoeur, one of the greatest theologians of the 20th century. So he's a very clever man, and I was so frustrated with him in the beginning, but now he seems to get it. Absolutely gets it, as we see with the nuclear announcements today. So I want to dwell on this. The president of Ukraine walks to the entrance stela of the city. Deep State map places him 1.15 kilometers from Russia's positions, 500 meters from the gray zone. He records a video address. Ukrainian Ground Forces Day is being marked. He thanks the soldiers. He says, quoting verbatim, "Today, it is extremely important to achieve results on the front lines so that Ukraine can achieve results in diplomacy." Do you remember that? So we achieve results on the front lines so that Ukraine can achieve results in diplomacy. That's how it works. All our strong positions within the country are strong positions in the talks on ending the war. He closes, "Today is your day." Thank you, guys. The same day, the Khartia commander, Igor Obolyensky, confirms to Ukrainsky Pravda that the Second Corps of the Ukrainian National Guard's Khartia formation has conducted a successful counteroffensive inside Kupiansk and is itself encircling a Russian force inside the city. The task was to enter the city and clear it of Russians. We operated simultaneously along 2 or 3 axes, cutting off their logistics. So let's read what just happened in the cycle vocabulary. Putler's stage 1 move on Kupiansk. Russia controls Kupiansk. Ukrainian forces are surrounded. Come and see is falsified by the sovereign physically standing in Kupiansk, by the OSINT verified geolocation of his footage, and by the actual operational reality of Ukrainian forces actively retaking the city. The forward counter Disinfolklore move installs right mana at the same pole, at the same right pole, which is the pole we use to determine what is true and what is not. The apparatus is trying to capture. So the apparatus is trying to capture the right pole. It's trying to say A is true when it's not true. And it's trying to use the media, Disinfolklore, to persuade us that A is true when A is false. So the counter move is for President Zelensky to go there and demonstrate with his physical presence that actually B is true. So the lawful authority is in place and the apparatus claim to control is wrong. The code passes for Ukraine, but it fails. The code of positive trolls, the second element of which is ethical discipline. So it passes for Ukraine. The sovereign is there, but it fails for Russia because the sovereign isn't anywhere near Kupiansk, nor are his forces. The apparatus's substrat fabrication collapses on its own terms. This is what an ace counter move looks like. Same surface, Kupiansk, opposite code adjudication, opposite substrata mana effect. And here, before we move to Starobilsk, is the wider mechanism that President Zelensky's selfie exposes. The one I want to name and put on the record. It's the mechanism of paper conquests. The apparatus's stage 1 claims about which Ukrainian territory the apparatus controls are recorded in its own maps. The Russia General Staff's maps presented at official briefings claim, and the Institute of the Study of War has been documenting this in detail in the past week, that Russia controls not just Kupiansk, but territory 30 kilometers west of Kupiansk. And I'm indebted to, I think it was Will on Volya who alerted me to this, or it could have been FireFella, I'm not sure who, I can't remember, where territory Ukrainian forces clearly hold. This is taking on credit. The apparatus claims more than it holds because the claim is a propaganda asset. But the claim becomes an operational liability. The apparatus's own commanders cannot call in artillery or air bombs to defend territory the apparatus has officially claimed to control, because defending with artillery a position you say you control looks like friendly fire. Calling in air bombs exposes the lie. The right pole hack, we control X, creates a liability. We cannot defend X. The apparatus pays for its disinfolklore in its own degraded operational capacity. The apparatus self-defeats. The Jamestown piece names a sub-pattern of this, the flagpole tactic. Russian soldiers enter a Ukrainian-held position, sometimes in civilian clothes, raise the Russian flag, take a photo as evidence of complete control, and are then destroyed by Ukrainian fire within an hour, RIP. October the 29th of last year in Pokrovsk, a Russian flag lasted less than an hour. The same week, 15th of October, even more telling, Russian media announced a mass landing of Russian soldiers on Karantiny Island in the Ostrov district of Kherson. Federal-level Russian media disseminated the announcement. The Ukrainian military filmed the area in question. There was no enemy. Russian media simply cancelled the news. TASS, October 22nd, 2025. The flagpole tactic, map claim conquest, journalist invitation tours, all three are different expressions of the same operational logic. The apparatus is producing propaganda substrate for territory it does not actually hold. The propaganda substrate is the substitute for the territorial control, and the substitution carries its own self-defeating cost. This is the doctrine. Pokrovsk in October, Kupiansk in December, the same play, scaled and repeated. Starobilsk in May is the latest deployment. So Starobilsk, 21st of May, 2026, the night of the 21st into the 22nd, Starobilsk in occupied Luhansk. I know it well, as I said, from my OSC years on the contact line, half an hour's drive from Stanitsa Luhanska Bridge, where it all happened for me, where I discovered Disinfolklore, where I worked through the war from 2015 onwards, a drone strike, multiple drones, 3 waves, 16 one-way attack drones by Russia's own count, hits a 5-story building inside Starobilsk Pedagogical College complex. I'm aware of the reports about Russians bombing themselves and Raya Sugar. My method we don't have to go into that. We don't need to know the facts. But it would be very interesting if attic proof came of that. But now I want to be careful here, because what I told you a moment ago about my initial reading of this case turned out to be wrong in one specific way that matters. When I first heard about Starobilsk, I heard it through Putin's statement about it. The apparatus's framing reached my information surface before I had heard about the incident through any Ukrainian or independent channel. I formed the read, the new campaign at that moment, but the read was about the pattern of the apparatus's deployments, not about anything to do with the temporal order of incident reporting. So when I commissioned a careful hour-by-hour chronology of the case to test my temporal hypothesis that I've been working with, the chronology disproved one specific framing I had been considering and confirmed the deeper point. Here's what the chronology found. The strike landed in the small hours of the 22nd of May. By the morning, Russia's Human Rights Commissioner, again, an actor, so they're acting the role of a Human Rights Commissioner, Yana Lantratova, was already making the civilian casualty claim. 35 children. So remember, I discovered Disinfolklore when Russia planted the mother and the maiden archetype in a story that just seemed not true. Pashenyk, the Moscow-installed fake regional governor, again acting as a governor, he's an actor, as in a stage play on a television program, of occupied Luhansk, posted the telegram photos of the damaged building. The regional state TV channels of occupied Luhansk, the apparatus-aligned GTRKL Lug feed, the Lugansk 24 channel, were already running incident coverage, 24/7 incident coverage. By the morning of the 22nd, the apparatus had been first to the incident framing. Ukraine's general staff statement claiming the Rubicon headquarters target came later in the day. The 1602 Kyiv time per the UNN So initially, I had assumed Ukraine claimed it and the Russians were responding to it. So that was my hypothesis. But when I looked in detail at the chronology, that hypothesis was wrong. And it was explicitly reactive to the Russian side incident framing already in circulation. For this specific case, the apparatus had a structural first mover advantage on incident reporting. The strike happened on apparatus controlled territory. Regional apparatus aligned telegram channels are on the ground first reporters. Ukraine's general staff publishes target lists on its own schedule, typically morning after batches, not racing to the news mode. The apparatus first arrival on the incident is not a sign of a particular class, what I call Class L deployment. It's a sign of who happens to be in the room when the strike lands on apparatus-controlled territory. What is the sign of a Class L deployment? That's a coding I'm using in the neural network. It is the campaign elevation step. The campaign elevation step, in this case, landed at approximately 15:15 Kyiv time on the 22nd of May. At that moment, at a meeting of his Vremya Herov, Time of the Heroes program graduates, Putler issued the campaign elevation framing, verbatim, per Medusa. Tonight, the neo-Nazi regime in Kyiv carried out a terrorist attack on the student dormitory of Starobilsk Pedagogical Institute. He added, "This strike was not an accident. It just once again confirms the terrorist nature of the Kyiv regime." He ordered the defense ministry to draw up response options. Now watch what happens in the next 9 hours. Peskov, the Kremlin's press secretary, issues the monstrous crime framing, verbatim. This is a monstrous crime, an attack on an education institution where children and young people are present. So the mother and the maiden archetype, the fertility of the realm depends on children. Zakharova at the foreign ministry issues the deliberate against children framing. Lvova-Belova, for whom a warrant is currently issued for her arrest, Lvova-Belova, the presidential commissioner for children's rights, another actor, the same operator who oversees the forcible deportation of Ukrainian children and kidnapped one herself from occupied territories that the International Criminal Court has issued a warrant for her and Putin for, claims up to 18 children could be trapped. The Russia's foreign ministry calls for an emergency UN Security Council meeting. Pashinnik's telegram distributed photo of the damaged building reaches Western media via the Associated Press and is used by CBC News and Reuters as the article's lead framing image. 6 Russian apparatus operators issue coordinated naming claims within 12 hours. State television, state media, MFA, presidency, occupier, regional, all in chorus. Pashinnik's photo carries the framing into Western mainstream media. Within 36 hours, the UN Security Council has met. The kinetic retaliation has been ordered. The framing has been preceded into the Western press headlines, and the cycle is closing for execution. This is the campaign elevation bundle. It's the apparatus' signature. It's recognizable as a pattern. And when I saw Putler talking about a school in Russia occupied in Starobilsk, I immediately recognized some pattern was being set off. And this is not as a temporal first arrival on incident reporting, but as a coordinated bundle of operations within a time narrow window. 6 operators, same framing, 12 hours, Western media imagery, absorption, cross-channel synchronicity. The bundle is the Class L deployment. So I've programmed my algorithm to look for these kinds of patterns in data. Overnight, on the 23rd into the 24th, 90 missiles, 600 drones, including the Oreshnik nuclear-capable hypersonic, for the 3rd time in this war. Targets included Chernobyl Museum, the National Art Museum, the Kyiv Opera Theatre, where, as we know, the first Ukrainian Parliament of the modern era met. Dynamo Stadium, where I once saw Depeche Mode, amazing concert. Around 30 residential buildings, a water supply facility, 2 killed in Kyiv, 80 wounded, including 3 children. The Chernobyl Museum struck in a barrage framed as retaliation for the Starobilsk dormitory. The cycle in textbook form. The doctrine I described in section 1, move 1, apparatus invites journalists, manufacturers, evidence, substrat. Move 2, Western media absorbs the framing through the imagery absorption mechanism. Move 3, apparatus executes the operation under moral cover. But there's one more substrat truth about the Starobilsk, specifically that the apparatus's framing tries hardest to hide. The substrat truth is the apparatus self-incriminating in its own evidence. The apparatus's load-bearing assertion on Starobilsk is no military facilities nearby. Without that assertion, the war crime framing collapses. With that assertion, the war crime framing holds together long enough for stage 3 execution to land, which is the justification of the fake revenge attack, which was always planned anyway. The assertion, and so that's why when you see Putler beginning this campaign elevation pattern, you understand an attack is on the way, as Ukrainians do. The assertion is falsified by the apparatus's own named operator on the apparatus's own social media channel on the same day as the apparatus framing chorus. The operator's name is Vodolotsky, member of the Duma since 2007, on the European Union sanctions list, founder and head of VOIN, the apparatus's military patriotic center network, founded in 2022 on Putler's direct instruction, Kremlin funding to the tune of 50 billion rubles over the past 5 years. That translates into about $100. 21 branches, 2 of them in occupied Ukrainian territories, 1 in occupied Donetsk, 1 in occupied Luhansk. The Luhansk branch's own materials list the curriculum: drone control, shooting, tactical training, electronic warfare systems, parachute jumps from training towers. Presumably, if you're trying to put up a Wi-Fi link. 3-month basic courses producing drone pilots and electronic warfare operators for the Russian armed forces. 400 instructors, many trained at the Russian University of Special Forces. Per the apparatus's own materials, graduates directed special UAV pilot units, such as Rubicon. The Rubicon Center, which is what Ukraine's general staff said it had struck, the apparatus's military patriotic center's network own published doctrine names Rubicon as the destination unit for the drone pilot recruits the network produces. And here's the move. On the Voin Center's own Telegram channel, Vodolatsky's own social media surface, on the morning of the 22nd of May, as part of this cacophony, in the same statement window as Putler's campaign elevation, Vodolatsky signs a statement claiming the Starobilsk strike as an attack on, and I'm quoting, students of the Starobilsk College of our pedagogical university. The capital letters on our are in the original. The apparatus's named operator of the apparatus's drone pilot recruitment network on the network's own social media channel has claimed the Starobilsk institution as Voin's own. In the same window as the apparatus is naming Ukraine's strike a war crime against civilians. A separate Vodolotsky statement on the same Telegram channel, this one from before the strike, documents that the Luhansk Voin branch has signed network agreements with all universities of the fake republics. University students become Voin candidates training in the UAV operation, fire training, engineering, tactics, the entire higher education apparatus of the occupied Luhansk region has been integrated into the apparatus's drone pilot recruitment pipeline. Vodolatsky personally signed off on it. Now apply this to Russia's no military facilities, no nearby assertion. The apparatus's named operation has on his own channel, claimed the Starobilsk institution as Voyn's own and documented that Voyn integrated universities are drone pilot recruitment substrats for Rubicon-class units. Ukraine's General Staff statement that it struck a Rubicon-class drone warfare unit headquarters is no longer Ukraine's contested claim against Russia's denial. So we're at the right pole here. We have two assertions of truth. Putler says it's a monstrous war crime, or Peskov, and then Ukraine says, no, we struck a Rubicon-class drone warfare. How do we adjudicate between both sides? It's Ukraine's named target claim is corroborated by the apparatus's own named operator's own self-documenting Telegram channel. So this is not a borderline case. And my code of positive trolls adjudication on, which is the right on Russia's no military facilities nearby assertion, fails. Not because of Ukrainian counter-evidence, but because of the apparatus's own evidence. The both sidesism in Western coverage collapses in the apparatus's own materials. Even in Alice in Wonderland, there has to be some sort of logic. The campaign elevation bundle has a hole in it. The apparatus deployed its named operator to claim the substrat. The apparatus's official naming simultaneously denied existed. The deployment self-falsifies. Now, if it turns out that the Russians bombed the place themselves, none of this changes. And that's why I give this analysis to enable us to find patterns in cases where Russia doesn't bomb its own facilities. And it doesn't matter to me whether or not it bombed the facility itself. With this analysis. And I want to pause and name something structural about the operators we've just walked through, because the operators in the Starobilsk campaign elevation course are not random. They are the class. Peskov is the Kremlin press secretary. He's been the apparatus's official naming voice since 2008. Zakharova is the foreign ministry spokesperson in that role since 2015. Lvova Belova is the presidential commissioner for children's rights, the operator the International Criminal Court indicted, or, well, strictly speaking, issued warrants for, alongside Putler himself, for forcible deportation of Ukrainian children. Lantratova is the Russian Federation's human rights commissioner. Pashenyk is the occupier-installed head of the fake Luhansk Folks Republic, the man who was, before 2014, a Ukrainian security service officer and who is now the regional namer for the occupier-installed administration of an occupied Ukrainian oblast. Konashenkov and his successors at the Defense Ministry, Lavrov at the Foreign Ministry, Medvedev on the Security Council, Kirill at the Orthodox Patriciate. These operators are a class. The institutional function of the class is to perform what I'm going to call, for the rest of this and going forward, the namer class function. The namer class function is the institutionalized performance of naming on behalf of the apparatus, naming what the apparatus needs named in the framing the apparatus needs, on the schedule the apparatus needs. In the frameworks, in my frameworks vocabulary, the namer class operates at what I call an NM pole, the foundation pole of naming what is. So it's the opposite of MN, mana. Mana is the spirit, it's the element, it's the energy inside a meme. The naming pole is what you call it. And when the naming attaches to the substrate that actually exists in the way the naming says, when the wall really did contain that many fallen soldiers, when the pantheon of heroes really does enter the name of Ukrainian war dead, that's right mana, that's right installed on this naming pole. The code passes, it's in folklore. When the naming counterfeits substrate, when Peskov's monstrous crime names what is not a monstrous crime. When Zakharova's deliberate against children names what it is not. When Lvova-Belova, children trapped, names what is not. Disinfolklore manner is installed on the NM pole. The Code 7 adjudication, which is ethical discipline or right, fails. Against what standard? Against the post-World War II legal factual standard, the Geneva Conventions, the Genocide Convention, the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, the UN Charter, the Helsinki Final Act, the Budapest Memorandum, Additional Protocol 1 of the Protection of Civilians, every official naming by the namer class on Starobilsk, on Mariupol, on Bucha, on Izium, and Kakovka, on the deportation of children to Crimea, on the annexation decrees of September 2022. Every single one of these official namings fails the second element in the Code of Positive Trolls. It's against the post-World War II legal standard. This is what I mean by Peskov as namer, adjudicated as falsely naming manner, not right. All Russia's official spokespersons. The class itself is structurally a sustained NM-pole Disinfolklore manner installation machine. The chorus we saw in Starobilsk is not a one-off. It's the daily output of this class. The class is the deployment. The deployment is the class. For the framework's detection model, the local large language model I'm building, the namer class is a role tag class. The model is being trained to recognize the institutional roles, the chorus pattern, chorus density per time window, the imagery substrate, absorption pattern from the operator, telegram channels into Western media, and the code tool 7 against named legal instrument adjudication. The class is detectable, the class is trainable, and the detection of the chorus is the leading indicator of the class L campaign elevation that the apparatus is about to land. So how did the Western media carry the stage 1 framing into stage 2 on Starobilsk? CNN, 23rd of May, the URL of the article, and you don't even need to read the article, but of course I did. The URL is the framing, reads, Putin, Ukraine, strike, Starobilsk, international. The headline reads, massive Russian missile barrage hits Kyiv after Putler orders retaliation for deadly Ukrainian attack. The grammatical subject is Russia. Yes, Russia hit transitively, but the predictive predicate carries the cycle's grammar perfectly intact. After Putler orders retaliation for deadly Ukrainian attack, the word retaliation is doing the work. Deadly Ukrainian attacks, uncritical, ungalvanized by qualification, attached to no headline mention of the contested Rubicon headquarters claim, is doing the apparatus's work for it. CBC News, same day, Putler vows revenge after Ukraine attack kills at least 6, wounds dozens at student dorm. Same grammar, Ukraine attacks established as fact, predicate, Putler established as the responding moral agent, the merciful sovereign. The lead photograph, the article's authority position imagery, is from Pashinyk's Telegram channel, distributed by Associated Press. The caption to CBC's editorial content identifies Pashinyk as the Moscow-appointed head of the Russian-controlled Luhansk region. Now, let's be grateful for small mercies. But the photograph occupies the article's authority position. Most readers do not know who Pashinyk is, or even where this is in Ukraine, or even what's going on in Ukraine. Most readers will not internalize that the Luhansk Folks Republic is an occupier-installed structure with no legitimate authority over the territory it claims. Photograph reads to a non-specialist eye as that authoritative image of the event. The class L absorption is happening at the visual substrate layer, where most readers' impressions form, while the propositional layer of the article maintains plausible balance. Even Al Jazeera, which used the more critical attribution verb labels, Russia labels Ukraine attack in occupier monstrous crime. Even Al Jazeera leads with the Russiast framing verb in the headline. The UN, and I want to be fair, the UN was the most cautious of the surveyed sources. The UN headline reads, UN alarmed by reports of deadly strike on dormitory in occupied Luhansk. They have the word reports, good. They have the verb alarmed, less good. Alarm is itself an apparatus-induced state. Inside the article, the UN's own caveat is explicit. The UN does not have access to the area which is under temporary Russian occupation, cannot verify the details of the reported strike. So why is it commenting on it? The UN is telling you that it does not know whether the Russia's framing is true, but the headline does not say unverified. The headline says alarmed. 2 days after the strike, Zakharova publicly accused the BBC of officially refusing to visit Starobilsk. I'm sure they can get that guy Rosenberg in Moscow to go, and accuses CNN of being on vacation. The apparatus extracts mileage from Western coverage. The apparatus also extracts mileage from Western non-coverage. The framing wins either way. The framing is the apparatus's product. The framing is what the apparatus is for. What is the right stage 2 response from the Western press? It's not balance. Balance in this asymmetric situation is the apparatus's victory. The right response is what Tool 7, the ethical discipline or right tool in the Code of Positive Trolls, which is a core module in the Disinfolklore analytical method, would tell you to do. Apply the question, is the meme's manner right or ethical? Russia is the occupying power. Russia is striking Kyiv with hypersonic missiles as we speak. The named target, Rubicon headquarters, claim is operationally credible and falsifiable by Russia in a single statement that Russia has not made, and is corroborated by the apparatus's own named operators' self-documenting Telegram channel. These claims do not deserve parity in a Western newspaper headline. To give them parity is itself an ethical failure. I have a name for the journalists and commentators who do this, and I have patience and I have sympathy for them and empathy for them, but not for the ones who have been watching this war for as long as I have and who still cannot see this pattern. I have called them, since March 2024, revenge cycle historians. The revenge cycle historian treats the most recent apparatus announced to trigger as the starting point of analysis. The cycle is presented as if it began on the 22nd of May, 2026, and everything before that, Pokrovsk, Kupiansk, the 12-year apparatus pattern that I first noticed in Stanice Luhanska on the ground, on the micro, and then on the macro, the Mariupol boat, Dugina artifact in 2022, when she, in her very lovely English accent, educated by the apparatus to communicate directly to Westerners, talked about how the Ukrainians were hiding inside schools to provoke the Russians to hit those schools in order to then accuse the Russians of hitting the schools. The Amnesty in August 2022 report, which had the same framing that Dugina had, all of it is excluded from the frame as background. The revenge cycle historian is the most powerful instrument the apparatus has in the Western press. The apparatus does not need the Western press to believe its framing. It needs the Western press to treat the framing starting point as the cycle's starting point. Ukraine attacks Starobilsk and Russia avenges this. That is the only stage 2 move the cycle requires. And one more piece from the Starobilsk case before I get to the end, because as I was assembling this material, a Finnish anti-disinformation practitioner, Pekka Kalliomäki, I'm not great with Indo-European or non-Indo-European names either, who publishes as Vatnik Soup, published a 13-panel thread on the case that converged on near identical analysis as mine, using independent methodology and largely distinct primary source evidence. He quotes the NAFO photo forensic searcher Tanker Fellow extensively, not to be confused with my fellow Irishman. 6 categories of evidence beyond what I've walked through in this episode. Tankerfellow traced the apparatus's victim photos, the photos the relatives were holding at the staged memorial scene, to Pinterest selfies, casting platform stock, a 2000 viral 2000 viral Mars Boys, Russian internet meme, the Ukrainian Plast Scouting Organization, and a Ukrainian blogger named Katerina Yurievna. The photographs the relatives were holding were not photographs of the dead. The apparatus has a documented history of doing this. Vatnik Soup notes they once used a photo of a gay porn star, Billy Harrington, on one of their memorial plaques, probably without paying him the just fee. Random and recycled photo deployment on apparatus memorials is meta pattern, not accident. We see the same thing every 9th of May, the annual Immortal Regiment March, where many marchers carry portraits of people who are not their ancestors, portraits distributed at staging points and discarded near rubbish bins after the procession, documented since the Red Square incident of 2015, which some of us will remember. Vatnik Soup catalogued the named international journalists the apparatus brought to the Starobilsk fake coverage tour. Che Bose from RT Ireland, I hate saying that term, those two words together, RT Ireland, getting it right. Saeed Khalaf from Al Arabiya, Moscow, Eldrin Aydar from Turkey, Giovanni Pigni, who writes for La Stampa, but has lived in St. Petersburg since 2015. And then Lu Yugian from Phoenix TV, China. The apparatus pre-builds its own international amplification substrate. Rather than waiting for Western media to organically echo, the Starobilsk tour's one deployment, the Pokrovsk Kupiansk October-December series, is the precursor. The pattern goes back to the Mariupol boat Dugina tour of August 22. How did that work out for you, Daria? And RIP, and the earlier Donbass tours of 2014 onwards. And the load-bearing falsification of the entire apparatus framing, the apparatus's own pre-strike state TV coverage of the Starobilsk facility, Russia 1, GTRK Lug, regional state TV, the Luhansk channel, all three had filmed the facility before Ukraine struck it. Like you don't need to hire Palantir to get their targeting. You just watch RT today. Their footage shows all male drone pilot trainees, because of course women couldn't possibly drive a drone in the Russianist imagination, at laptops with target locking micro drone hardware. No women in sight. The watermarks of 3 state broadcasters are visible on the footage. The apparatus has falsified its own post-strike. Girls aged 14 to 17 killed. Again, the maiden archetype to trigger emotions. Claim on its own most authoritative surfaces. 2 practitioners, one me, one Pekka, 2 methodologies, me, the Disinfolklore analytical method, his Vatnik soup method, 2 largely distinct evidence chains, same code-adjudicated verdict on the apparatus framing. Tool 7 fails ethical discipline. When 2 independent practitioners, me and Pekka, reach the same verdict within 72 hours of the strike, the verdict is the verdict. The framework's job is to do this work systematically at machine scale on every Disinfolklore deployment that lands. Vatnik Soup is showing what in folklore grade code discipline analysis looks like in real time. The local large language model, which I'm training, is being trained to do exactly this in volume on the apparatus whole output every day. I'll leave it at that for tonight. Thank you for listening. Out.
Thanks, Decoding. Excellent analysis of what is, again, a completely false, contrived story. This was something that they couldn't have planned ahead of time. This was something that they reacted to. Is the only difference I see between this and some of the other schemes where they have absolutely planned it ahead of time. But it is really good to see that you and Pekka agree about this. I'm not surprised. And nobody, I think, was surprised when we learned that, no, Rubicon drone team there. And they didn't list any dates of death or birth that indicated children. So there's all kinds of signs there around this situation. So, but thank you very much for this. So, FireFella, I'll turn it over to you. And I see we do have hands too. FireFella?
We do have hands, and Iona, it's you first, and then Lexicon.
Yeah, thank you so much. Amazing analysis, Decoding, and I I have a few points to add. I'll try to be quick. First, about framing. When you try to create emotion, when you try to embed in the minds of other a certain idea, usually you can use a lot of means, but if there is something already there, you will write the wave. And that's why the Russians are using the words school and girls, because there was another recent event with a strike on a girls' school that actually created a lot of emotion. And if you search on Google, just a simple search, strike on a girls' school, yes, you will have the Iranian strike, the strike in Iran on the girls' school. But also in the top 10 results, there will be a few about this. For example, UN News, Ukraine, UN alarmed by reports of deadly strike on dormitory in Starobilsk. So basically, you ride the wave. You use the emotion and you frame your statements in such a way that certain words are creating an emotional impact in others. So that's about the framing. And also, it is very interesting because the Russians use these reversals. That was a training facility for future soldiers, future drone operators. So it was a military target, legitimate military target. But they use this, they reverse this, they say it's a civilian target, and then they say they have to retaliate, and they claim to target military targets, but actually they are targeting civilian targets. So a double reversal. They claim that because of a strike of a civilian, which was not civilian target, they will retaliate striking military, which are not military targets. And we know about these schools, churches, museums, academy, philharmonics, opera, and so on and so forth. A list of targets which are by far not military targets in the center of Kiev. So that was my first point about framing. My second is very short. They claim children. There were no children. They published the list with the persons that died. None of them was a child. All the ages are above 18. Yes, they were young. Yes, they were, some of them were girls. But whose fault it is that they were trained to be drone operators? I mean, why were they a military target? Because Russia is trying to use them as, drone operators. And my third point is also about framing and about our Western thinking. Because if the thing would have happened in reverse, if Russia would have struck training facility in Ukraine, and actually it happened several times, once in Lviv, and it happened in other places, training facilities for soldiers, for officers, and so on and so forth. If this would have been such an event, we wouldn't have commented at all. I mean, have you seen those comments? That horror, that, all this UN talks about Russia struck the university in Lviv or something like this. We didn't see this because, Russia knows how to ride the wave. And I have two funny news. Well, funny, if you can call that. They issued like a resolution in the Duma in Russia to condemn this Ukrainian strike was in Starobilsk. And strangely, there were two votes against, and they are very upset. And of course, they issued some statements that it was a glitch in the matrix. It was something that happened because of the technology, because of course those votes could not have been against this resolution. And they asked the persons that voted to declare why it happened, and they said that this can send a bad signal because of the loss of unanimity and so on. And I find it rather funny in a way that they happen to have two votes against, and they were very upset about this. And the second point I wanted, the second news I have from Commerzant is somehow related to this, and again is using the framing. So basically, they say that Europe, EU, is retaliating following, the strike in Starobilsk and the Russian strike in Kiev. So, in response to the threat of new strikes on Kiev, Ukraine's European partners are escalating tensions with Russia. So, the escalation never comes from Russia, it comes from the EU, of course. It was sarcasm in case you want. Anyway, I spoke a lot, so back to you.
Decoding, would you like to come back? I'll take that as a no. Lexicon, go ahead.
Hi, sorry about that. Not paying attention to my low power mode notification. Just sticking my mic. So I'll remedy that. But yeah, so there's lots of points here. I thought, so now there have been many people, of course, Ukrainians and friends of Ukraine, pointing out all of these anomalies in the Russian story. And I don't remember where all of them come from. But one, we heard earlier that the pictures of the girls have turned out to be pictures of Ukrainian girls that Russia has killed. And maybe this one sounds too good to be true. Maybe this one is not right. That they published them with their names, and so the Ukrainian names. But Chris Sampson, in his Substacks, has been following this a lot, and he picks up on your point about retaliation, showing that this is a constant 1-2-1-2. Retaliation immediately says that what Russia is doing is the second. It's the response to the initiating actor, of course, and that's Ukraine all the time. We know it's nonsense because there's no way that Russia would put together this massive attack in the space of a couple of days, and it would take them 10 days to 2 weeks to minimum to put that massive attack against Kiev and other cities together. And also, I'm wondering if this was in Pekka's series of frames or someone else who talked about how odd the Russian response was in the on this so-called dormitory, where a minimum number of there's none or few ambulances. The rescuers come in there in a very lackadaisical pace and stand about smoking cigarettes. There's nothing like what we're familiar with and they show by contrast a Ukrainian rescue scene where there are tons of ambulances waiting to respond to the work of tons of people working frantically at the scene to uncover these possible victims. Nobody's hauled out, no bodies, never mind living victims, and so on, 18 that are under the rubble still. That stuff, I'm just now I believe I've seen so many that I don't know if that was Chris Sampson or from Pekka or from another place. And then lastly, I wanted to say that in the report, a report about Russia's multiple domain so-called hybrid war, all domain war, that this European Center for Strategic Analysis has called for Europe to do much, much more to retaliate. But one of the things they show in the beginning of the article is a graph that has plotted, they have gone over some, I can't remember, an enormous number, thousands and thousands of Russian stories of this ilk or other stuff they planned. And they show that when an incident occurs, when they at some point, the incident, name it, incident 1 down to 4,000, or I don't know how many, they went over a period of months and months, and a huge number of incidents. And of course, now with this large data, these large data tools, we can do a great deal of work. Anyway, they show that within 4 to 45 minutes of an incident, the graph shows you the huge numbers of stories that have already come up. Then they're picked up by sort of what we call pool organs that Russia maintains all over the place to put them into some kind of media space within 4 hours, and then within 48 hours, all sorts of these also pool influencers have picked up and distributed the stories, and so within a space of just 48 hours. These are news stories all over the place, but the pattern is shown. And then there's another graph below the line, a different line showing the number of actors involved. So initially, when the story is spread in the first 45 minutes, it's all being fired out from Russian organs. So a very small number firing repeatedly this story and putting it out into multiple, I don't know, spheres that it's able to do. So the number of actors increases and increases, but initially it's all coming from this Russian source. So that's rather interesting. I posted that article itself, but the link is also in the Substack of Timothy Garton Ash, who I always mention, not to be confused with Timothy Ash, but the historian Timothy Garton Ash, or political scientist and historian, who writes a Substack about 2 days ago called "Don't Just Do Something, Stand There." And but in fact, he's calling for more articulated, explicit responses. And he provides a link in his Substack to this report by the European Center for Strategic Analysis, which contains that graph that I've just mentioned, as I say, showing the start from a very small number of actors branching out to huge numbers, spreading out, and the multiple stories being fired out at the same time within 45 minutes and being picked up over through this series of steps that Russia uses to get this into the information sphere. So maybe spheres. And so maybe you know something of my mix up there about who provided the footage of these Russian so-called rescue teams with no ambulances hanging about smoking in a desultory fashion while not really digging through anything or rescuing anybody, and other errors I might have made. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Lexicon. Thank you, Oana. Scout, I see your hand. I'm just going to check with Decoding once he's watered his throat after that mammoth chat. Do you want to come back, Decoding, or are you all right for the moment?
I'm fine. Very interesting inputs from both Lexicon and Joanna. Thank you.
No worries, sir. So, Scout, go ahead.
So, I'm really encouraged when I think back 4 years ago to see how less effective the Russian Disinfolklore, as you call it, is being. This information operation that we've been talking about today about the dormitories, I think in a larger context that I've been following is that they're trying to provoke NATO, general European West to support. This is my premise, that they're trying to do a provocation to support an internal facing story or narrative that NATO everybody is fighting against them, and that's the reason that they're losing the war. So I think this is in support of a provocation, trying to do a provocation. And I look at what they've been doing in the Balkans with drones, looking and other kind of information that they've been publishing to support that. And so I think I'm really encouraged by the success of exposing this particular story, because it's showing up everywhere and they put a lot of effort behind it. And I think that we can measure success in some ways by the exposing of the falseness of this particular story, because there's no provocation. There's a post that's somewhere in my feed recently that's talking that shows the Duma trying to not Duma, it's a Russian television trying to explain why, trying to figure out why there's been no response from the West about things that they've been doing. And so I think that that's a larger story, and I'm really interested in this narrative today that we're talking about. And finally, Decoding, I'm very interested in your LLM programming. I do work as well in that area, and I'm very interested in how we can find out more about that project that you're working on. And so that's where I'll land today. Thanks.
Thanks, Scouts Decoding.
Thanks, Scouts. Yeah, very interesting point, and also about the whole Oreshnik troll. I don't know. I don't really actually haven't looked at much media outside Twitter and then doing research for this, but my sense is no one's paying any attention to the Oreshnik thing, certainly in the significance of it, as Will was describing it being ICBM, which is the flip side of no one really caring about Ukraine, or people just caring about their normal business, and it comes back and bites the Russians because their objective isn't really reaching the audience they want it to be. So yeah, I agree with you, Scouts. There's certain reasons to be cheerful, to paraphrase that great song from English Culture, 1980s. Maybe FireFella will remember that. And I think Half Man, Half Biscuit on all of this operation. I don't know if it really broke through to people in the mainstream, but Ukraine's power at the moment kind of outweighs a lot of this, and I'd just like us to develop a literacy to see underneath these operations the archetypes of operation, which is the children archetype, which is like a tuning fork inside our minds that is being activated whenever we see that. And once we become aware of that archetype being operated, then we have an opportunity to pause before we share the tweet, or when we have an opportunity to explain what just happened to somebody. But now it's used so commonly by the Russians, as Yona very interestingly was pointing out, that it's and this is what I try to teach: archetypal literacy and develop it myself. And as for the LLM, yeah, it's a very interesting process, as I'm sure if you've gone through it or are going through it. Great learning process. I will reveal parts over the coming months as I progress along this path, as I've been doing for the past few weeks. But so far so good. So far the work which I've done based on this initial hand-labeled corpus of Russian disinfolklore from Luhansk, 10,000 propaganda items, is a great training set for the disinfolklore end aspect. And I'm very excited. I've got high hopes for it as a tool that can be used for literacy and generation. Indeed, I take Blaxican's point from that Stratcom Centre she was mentioning, that we have to be better at generating our own, what I call infolklore, which is a ethical, true, correct, at scale, that counteracts the disinfolklore that is infecting our minds and our brains. And my hypothesis is that what I saw in Eastern Ukraine is such a strong data set, and it's imminent in stuff we're seeing today and in Starobilsk as well, that it will apply to other discourses, for instance, in Trump or any other populist discourses. Out. Thank you all for being there. I'm going to have to go. Out.
Decoding, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time and talent, and I encourage everybody to go check out his information in his timeline and have a look at some of his websites. There's lots more to learn. There's other tools we have to learn as well, and we have lots of friends out there who educate us about those things. So we are making a very effective response to this particular thread of disinfolklore about Starobilsk. I've seen it myself. I've done it myself, and it usually they stop going on once I say it was, a drone headquarter, and it was, there's nobody under 18 who was included in the list of the dead. So there, and that usually shuts them down. So it isn't that hard to do. I hope everybody takes a swing at it if you see this. But yeah, so thank you very much, Decoding. And let's see. I'm just going to tell you this. There's the tweet in the nest from Mr. Budanov, Kirill Budanov, about some very strong disinfolklore that's being handed over to Ukrainians in occupied territories. And he mentions, for example, that it has been scientifically proved that systematically broadcasting the same message for 40 days is enough for it to deeply take root in the mind. And so he's talking about disinfolklore methods being used against Ukrainians, and what they're picking up there. We cannot reach into there yet and reply to what's going on. But I think that one of the things I see Decoding is that your tools may have some effect in that area. Back to you if you'd like to reply.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for sharing that tweet with me. That was exactly what I was thinking when I saw that from General Budanov, and he's talking about this intense this intense area where Russia has perfected these methods. So I think that's what I'm working on. It was born there. It's tuned for there, because that was where I first saw the mother and the maiden archetype in the mother and the maiden story, when me and my team were being provoked to go to see the cottage in the wood where the mother and her underage daughter were about to be chopped into little pieces by a Ukrainian Nazi. And I saw how powerful that absolutely implausible story, from the very first seconds I heard it, to me, it was so implausible. And the mother and the underage daughter was such an odd linguistic formulation that it just shook me. And then it was only a colleague from the London Metropolitan Police who was like, this is nonsense. But all our other colleagues were like, come on, we got to go. Why do you keep on asking questions, Stephen? Why? Because I kept on going back to them and saying, can you send me the documents? And I have the document. I posted it, which is this very neatly handwritten walk-in. And so I talked about the walk-ins and these expert witnesses the Russians use in court, and all of these patterns have emerged out of this. So when I saw General Budanov saying that, I was like, I've got something for you, but it'll be a little while before I somehow get to that level or get to those people to help them. But one day we will. But thank you for noticing that, James. I really appreciate that. Out.
Well, I will mention it to Budanov when I see him. Haha. Anyway, no, I really do hope that they can pick up on this. And through whatever means, I hope that they can figure out how to defeat what Russia is laying down on these poor people. They're not poor people, but you know what I mean. These people who are trapped inside the occupied zone. It's must be horrible. So, well, okay. That. Go ahead.
So, Decoding, thank you. Enlightening and educational and brilliant as usual. And just for your thoughts, the guilty as charged, sir, Ian during the blockheads. I grew up to him, a misspent youth, and what a musical genius he was. But very interesting lecture, sir. Thank you ever so much.
Yes. Well, yeah, indeed. And I just want to mention that Mockers had a wonderful discussion about how the big Russian two missiles launched. One just was so far off the target that Russia didn't even claim it. President Zelensky confirmed that there were two missiles that were fired, two of the big ones. And then Mockers went into this thing last night about the West in their nuclear stuff. And oh my goodness, it was most interesting to hear, speaking of, England's pile of nukes, and especially France's pile of nukes, and their intent to no longer declare how many they have. We know how many they had, but not how many they'll have in the future, and other things like that. And so it was very good counter medicine for for what Russia was trying to say. So if you haven't, and you want kind of something to not chuckle at, but to really understand how serious these things are, to be flashing around nuclear missiles is indeed a threat, and indeed the kind of thing that gets into people's psyche. And so to have that response there, it's wonderful. It's too bad that the BBC, CBS, CNN, Fox News never would do this. But if they all reported on the replies, and all it was just talking about nuclear effectiveness, nuclear capability of these different countries. I particularly like France's attitude, which is, if we think you're going to, we'll do it first. Don't worry about that. We'll do it first. So I thought that was great. So it's good to have a nuclear umbrella, everybody. So I encourage you to buy from me $4.99 a piece. Anyways, no, just kidding. But I think a nuclear umbrella line would be really cool to have, like something that just says on top of the umbrella, nuclear umbrella. Anyway, FireFella, I don't know if that's funny or not, but
No, James, it's absolutely right. And the French have called them the sneaky nukes from now on, because you don't know how many you got, you don't know where they are, and you don't know what we're going to do with them. And that's the doctrine now. Get on with it, which I find highly amusing from the French. If you know the French, that's definitely not them. But yeah, well played.
yeah. So good job last night, and so we've got a whole spiel of news here. So I want to definitely get through some of these stories, and I think that the other thing that I just want to mention really quickly is the report called "Manufacturing Impunity." And it is Peter Pomerantz, and as a member of one group, and the other group I forget entirely. Sorry, but they've written an extensive report about 5 different events that were where Russia was employing its sort of methodology that it used at Starobilsk, although most of these were planned well ahead of time. And so we had, predecessor reports, and then more. So I think this one is something that is a textbook example of what Russia does, and that report is extremely useful for more fully understanding some of the bigger, if you will, bigger examples. One of them, of course, was, I forget the name of the the prison where they're holding Ukrainians, and well, here it's crazy, but Russia said, well, you can see that they used, American weapons to hit this. Ukrainians hit this prison full of Ukrainians to hide the fact that they were all war criminals and things like this. And it's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Ukraine would not do that. But this is the kind of thing that they get out there into the public. They lie, and it may not have effect with us, but it certainly is one of their targets, to get it back to the people at home so that they can see how horrible the Ukrainians are, and thus continue the war. It's a failing. All of these things are failing more and more often on the home front, as at least in terms of it's not driving recruitment, I don't think, any longer. So, anyways, FireFella, where to now?
I don't know, James. Should we talk about Russia's losing across multiple fronts in much the way that Decoding just been talking about? So they are taking a pounding down in Zaporizhia, and they don't know what to do about it, and they're all moaning about it. Yeah. Their male bloggers are absolutely beside themselves. A, with rage, A, how can it happen? But B, surely we're better than this. And C, well, we're not losing to Ukraine, we're losing to NATO, which, again, fits Decoding's narrative quite beautifully. And I do think that whilst everyone on these sorts of spaces gets it, yeah, you made the point just a minute ago. It's about making people that come to it the first time to come to it with a bit of critical thinking and just not accept what's put in front of them, because A, who's putting it in front of you, and B, what are you actually reading? Because half the time you're not reading what you think you're reading, which is disappointing in especially in my friends. But there you go. Do you want to go there?
Yes, please. Yeah, I like to hear about the failures of Russia and their woeing. Woo, boo. Yeah, anyways, let's make the sound for the Russians. Woo! Anyway, that's supposed to be an air alarm for the Russians to hear, and we can laugh at them then, as Russia has done for Ukraine. Anyways, FireFella, take it away.
So the Russian troops are retreating under Ukrainian pressure in Donetsk Oblast. The firefighting is, or the fire, no, that's Usman's already. The fighting is still intense, but the direction matters. Ukraine is forcing them back instead of letting them dictate the tempo. Every Russian retreat tells the same story. The front is brutal, but Moscow's advances are not guaranteed, and the Ukrainian pressure is still changing the map. It absolutely is. And this, I don't know what's happened recently, but there's been a change in the tactics and probably the numbers of Ukrainian drone operators that are operating on the front. And it is, degrading their logistics behind quite remarkably, but also the amount of, I saw 2 videos the other day, and there wasn't just like 1 or 2 drones in the picture. There were like 5 or 6. Yes, there were multiple targets there, but 5 or 6 drones just flying around waiting for a target to hit. It was most uplifted.
Indeed. I saw that you have some tweets in the nest here. That I put them in, but they're yours, and these are the ones about this. And so the Chelyabinsk, I see, is mentioned. And then we've got a wonderful map of, Poltava area and Dnipro, and what's going on there. It looks interesting just from the color difference between the green and the red there.
Well, James,
yeah, go ahead.
Unfortunately, I can't see them in the nest, so I have to go back to where they are. So do you want to pick them up?
Yeah, you can't see them in the nest? I'll be darned. I can. Okay.
No, that's glitter twitch. As Awana put it, there's been something in the Matrix, and I'm not getting it.
Well, okay. Maybe we should put them into the spaces. Well, maybe not. Whatever. We'll talk about something later to address that. But and actually, no. Let me just say this: TKD Bach last night, while she was co-hosting, she created a thread of everything that was put into the nest. And this morning, I was able to, quote tweet that with the link to the Spotify recording of that. So I thought that was a great idea. Honest to God, if you are co-hosting and you can also do all that work, thank you very much. I can't do that. My attention cannot be split up that far, honestly. But I just thought that was a great idea. So let me just run through these really quick for people. And let's see. Donetsk. Donetsk troops, Russian troops are retreating under Ukrainian pressure in Donetsk Oblast. The fighting is still intense, but direction matters. Ukraine is forcing them back instead of letting Russia dictate the tempo. Every Russian retreat tells the same story. The front is brutal, but Moscow's advances are not guaranteed, and Ukraine pressure is changing the map. Woohoo! That's a good one. And then the next one is Winter is Coming. And the situation on the front is challenging. Donations are currently low. This is Rebecca Maciejowski. So obviously this is a little bit out of sync in terms of timing, but let's see, she's asking for money. So I got in a fundraiser there, FireFella, accidentally because I went the wrong direction. Another one, let's see, where are they all? My apologies. I thought I was ready and I'd see all these. Okay, here we go. This is from the Dead District. For the first time in a long while, a retreat of the Russian army has been recorded in the Zaporizhia and Dnipro direction, said Timokho, head of the Council of Reservists of the Ukrainian Ground Forces. Very good stuff there. And then we've got Donetsk we talked about. And then, yeah, I think I basically covered them there, FireFella. I hope I did enough there. If I missed one, tell me.
No, I think you got them all. Well done, you.
Right, onward with the news then. So there is several stories that I'd love to focus on for hours, but we can't do that today. Probably nor ever can we do that unless we go to 24-hour programming. But no, one of the things I want to point out to you is the tweet that I put in the nest from Beefeater, and the title of it is Justice Delayed, Tyranny Empowered. And this is the ICC's subtitle is the ICC's failure to confront Russia's war machine has shaken faith in international law. A free explainer thread by Beefy. And I thought this was so good. It's very long, but it is a quick, relatively speaking, education in how the ICC does their work and what is not possible for them, which includes having the police force, which, if we issue a warrant for arrest to somebody in the United States, the police pick up that warrant and they go, okay, we're on our way. And they go pick them up if they can. And in this case, they can't. They can't pick these up. So I believe that some of that work will be taken up by Ukraine. But at this point, we've got, people who are charged before the ICC who, have been able to go to American soil in Alaska. And that should be a violation, except the jurisdiction of the ICC does not extend for these cases into the United States or into Russia because neither one is signed up to the laws about this. And that is indeed a disaster. But I believe much of the work that will come from the tribunal for Ukraine, it's for Ukraine, but it really is to get Russians arrested and getting justice out of Russia. So, including also, the monetary remunerations that they're going to have to pay, and those I hope will come straight out of the bank accounts that are already in the West without any argument this time. I hope so. So it's a great tweet, very long. If I encourage you to check it out though. Anyways, we go. Financial Times. It's just so much fun to read this. Katerina Lizanova.
James Lexicon's got a roundup.
Okay,
Don't know if you can see it. Don't know if you can see it. That was all.
I don't, but I will just zip through this one because it's just, Putin and Trump don't have the cards, according to the Financial Times, is what the headline is. There's more to read there, but they don't have the cards. I love that. Anyway, okay, so the humor, maybe it's not humorous for you, but for me, I'm laughing still. Anyways, Lexicon, I do not see your hand, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah, we can spend some time on that FT one. There was a free link, but lots of us couldn't get into it. But she did give quite a bit of it. It'd be worth reading. But just before you go, yeah, on the ICC, like the thing is that the ICC doesn't have any police force that can go and get people, as you've said that we would do in our countries. And so then that means that these things, these warrants can be out there for a long time. It's rather intriguing. There's always some tension when we've got a war going on. If you start talks with an individual, then can't remember which goes first, but I just know that Lise, now what was her name? Anyway, Canadian Louise Arbour was in the ICC at the time, or the tribunal that was for Yugoslavia, and she's the one who indicted and brought Slobodan Milosevic, actually got him into the court. He died while imprisoned by the court, but. In fact, what was happening was that the negotiators involved were trying to urge the court not to issue this warrant and go after him because they wanted to have talks with him, and the two of them, the two, constrained each other. Anyway, so her team knew that if they were going to grab the guy, they would have to do it fast, and they did. There's a sort of B movie on Canadian, the CTV, the private network, and who knows where it's migrated to these days. As she's just been named the new Governor General of Canada, it may reappear somewhere, but it's a dramatization of this effort to get the guy. All that by way of saying that, so with ICC arrest warrants trailing like this, as they will, and it'll be a long time before Putin steps into some country that's going to have the guts to actually grab him for the court, then what happens is these things can show up. I don't know if people noticed, but at some stage in this pseudo negotiation process that Whitford and company engage in, the Russians tried on this idea that part of the conditions was that all ICC warrants be lifted. Now, the court said that that was an arrant nonsense because nobody can lift these, but, the court issues the warrant. There's no what we call a statute of limitations on it, and a country can't take it off. But anyway, so that dance has gone on, and that is the sort of thing Putin will definitely try for that kind of thing. And as we know with Iran, everything can be negotiated. Just give them other names. So yeah, that's something about that whole ICC discussion. So that's a whole lot of names to throw in at once. Probably sounds confusing. Let's go back to your item about the FT article, because I think it was really interesting, and I'd love to hear more of it if you've been able to
Yeah,
read it.
sure. Let me just reply to that and just say that there has been discussion too about like, oh, we don't want to, prosecute these people unless they're in the courtroom because it's not as effective, and that means that they'll never get tried. And so I think we just have to, if that comes up in front of you on Twitter or anywhere else, just say that's nonsense. It fulfills for the victims the sense of justice that they really need and deserve. And so there's a lot to be had from, what do they call that when they're not in the courtroom lexicon?
In
The criminal.
absentia.
Thank you. It escaped my mind. But I think that's so important that we just, and the other thing is that if they're found guilty in an abstentia, then the hunt can begin. And so loose the hounds, go hunt. Anyway, and now about not having the cards, I didn't read much into it. I just started laughing at the topic, honestly. So, Lexicon, you probably have more to say, or FireFella, do you have anything on that?
No, I just want to come back to the ICC thing. So I know all legal avenues will be taken, as they should be. So, Lexicon, what do you think Ukraine's answer to this will be?
Well, I mean, I think that the ICC is there to try people when it's difficult for the country to do it. Ukraine is able. I mean, they will try tons of people, but I think Ukraine would be very supportive. The answer to them try to wiggle out of like the length of time or not being present or no jurisdiction or which aspect are you raising?
So I think the Russians all have a staunch, you're not trying any of our people defence, and we don't recognise the court. What do you think then Ukraine's response will be? And I'm talking about official and unofficial.
Well, I think Ukraine shows it'll go in and get whoever it can. I don't think it'll ever swallow any of that nonsense. I mean, it's like some criminal, tries a murder on and says, well, in this jurisdiction where I'm hanging out, they don't recognize the court. So sure, possession, presence, they're all 9/10 of the law. If you can get the guy in court, you don't care who else recognizes it. No, most of the world's countries do. So I don't know. I think Ukraine will act it does things in practice. And if it can get hold of Belova, Falova, and Putin, and a whole lot of other people for whom warrants have been issued, they will do it. And yep, there's no statute of limitations in their mind. And Ukraine is in the process of joining the court. I just think Ukraine will not recognize the shilly-shallying and will insist on it. And as we've been saying, all of these guys will be looking over their shoulders till the end of time.
No, that's the point I was getting to. I think Ukraine has already demonstrated, especially with those that were responsible for Bucha and Irpin and all those sorts of places, that they're already, dishing out the damage to people unofficially. And I think some people will go off books for a long time and then come back suddenly, and lots of people will be falling out of buildings, drinking, silly tea and having motor car accidents, and people just don't be surprised about it. Mary, welcome up.
Hey guys, thanks. I was wondering, I know Ukraine has been going around and kind of petitioning, and I know they've gotten quite a few of the EU countries on board for a kind of like a Nuremberg style case, where they bring it up that way rather than just relying on the ICC. Does anyone have any further information on that? Because I know that is separate from the ICC proceedings.
It is separate, but working in conjunction with the ICC. The tribunal is there because Ukraine basically asked the court to consider their need for justice, and the ICC extended this to Ukraine. And so 37 countries in the EU said, yes, let's do this. And so that was what they needed to get going on this process. So I don't know much about the implementation of it, but I know that they made the decision officially to work with the ICC on this, and it will be separate but kind of equal in terms of the process. Now, the difficulties with all of this and the ICC working with this tribunal, it's going to be interesting to see, but it's something that I'm trying to keep up with the news on it. I'm not seeing a lot of news about it, so I wish I could say more, but it is absolutely going to reach some headlines at some point. Found guilty will be part of the headline, I hope, in many cases. So I think it's well on its way. Mary, I wish I had more to say about that. Maybe someone else does.
No, sorry, only back up what you said, James, that it's got the go-ahead. There are, I think it's 37, 38 countries now joined the movement, and I don't know what the product is going to be or how they're going to go about it at all. But yeah, it is moving forward, Mary, yes. Europe's doing its bit.
Guys.
I heard, but can't confirm, that this is going to take place in Paris. Which that's good. That's very good. A related topic is that the nation of Hungary has reversed the decision to leave the treaty that is establishing the ICC. So, in other words, they're saying yes, we're going to agree to work under this as a nation. And I thought that was related news for this. Absolutely, it is. And very important indicator of where Hungary is going, which is to be a law-abiding, good neighbor for the rest of Europe and hopefully the rest of the world. And I think that that's a really good sign. There are other countries who are moving in the opposite direction, but Hungary is a reverse course and is on a good flight path, I would say. So let's see here. So that was just a little bit of news there. Okay. So we talk with Decoding about Disinfolklore, and there's all kinds of information that comes out from Russia that would qualify as disinformation at the very least, and Disinfolklore, is a good example of or a good subset that we see. And so there is from Business Ukraine Mag. This Russia's new disinformation campaign portraying Europe as bloodthirsty warmongers is absurd. Even by Kremlin standards, Europeans have been appeasing Russia and steadily disarming for decades. Indeed, it is hard to imagine a less militaristic organization than the EU. And if you look at the image that they decided to use, it shows all these skeletons with blue helmets with a ring of stars on them, and apparently they're marching toward Moscow now. Which if that actually happened, I would not stop them. But it isn't, and Europe has not struck Russia, period. The last time they got attacked, correct me if I'm wrong, besides Ukraine, was in World War II. So, I mean, get off it. But Russia will never stop this kind of lying. So, good news story. Let's see, what else? There's some other things to talk about. A couple more. I just talked about that one. The one about Hungary is in here. Army media is reporting, this is Ukraine Army media is reporting that a priest of the Moscow affiliated church walked down the streets of Odessa in his cassock, marking targets on Google Map for Russian missiles. One of the targets was hit twice. The second strike timed for when the rescuers arrived. Ukraine's security services, the SBU, counterintelligence has detained a cleric of a parish of the Moscow Patriarchate Church, the UOC-MP in Odessa, who directed a double missile strike on the city in March 2024. The SBU announced the arrest on May 27th. What it did, using the coordinates the priest provided, Russia forces attacked a recreational area on the port city with 2 Iskander-M ballistic missiles. The first hit residential buildings and other civilian infrastructure in the region center, where, in the corrector's opinion, I don't understand that term exactly, but military personnel might have been. The second strike hit the same location when the emergency services arrived, a double tap strike. And there's actually quite a bit more to this, but I'm not going to read it all to you because I think you get the point. This is the Russian church that's doing this. We knew about Kirill, coming from the Kremlin, being trained as a spy, and he is actually the leader of a church that is blessing the Satan missile, for example, and actually kind of blessing people when they kill Ukrainians. So not in my church, anyways. It's not like that. Another important story, it's disgusting. So Odessa, um, they got one. They got one out of their way. So hopefully anybody doing this is quickly caught. As you can see, the time between when they were apprehended and whatever follows on that, it's been a couple of years now since they actually did this. This priest. So which is to say, really, that Ukraine has patience, determination, and will absolutely close all these cases one way or the other. It'll be because the person's already dead, or they have punished them with warfare, or they end up in a prison cell for a long time. So I think this is Ukrainian justice, and they went to a lot of trouble to catch this guy and convict him. And so this good on Ukraine, I guess. I'll stop there. FireFella.
No, absolutely, James. I'm out of stuff to talk about, sir. I'm just filling in. So, whatever you want, whichever way you want to go.
Okay. And by the way, I'm so not used to ending on anything except the end of an hour now. It used to be I was just turning over the chair to somebody else, but now we go for 2 hours usually, which I think is still long format for some people compared to some podcasts. But anyway, so we're there actually in terms of the time. So let me focus on a couple things about fundraising. First of all, how do you pronounce April's last name? Is it Huggett or Huggett? I've heard both. FireFella.
Huggett. It's Huggett.
Huggett. Thank you very much. Well, I heard that the fundraising that was done last Friday afternoon with Robin and I and absolutely mockers helping out with the discussion with April, that it was 3,000 Canadian dollars were raised during that session. And so thank you, everybody. And it was really moving for me to listen to April speak about what she does. One of the memorable things that she said is, I get up every day and I work hard every day, no matter how tired I am, and I do it the next day and just keep going. And another memorable thing she said was that you don't know which one is coming for you. You can't tell that, but it's always a threat. You can't worry about it. I'm paraphrasing here. But I thought that's just sort of the way it has to be for soldiers, I suppose. So she does a good job. I am also struck by the fact that the Alcatraz Brigade, is it FireFella? I think it is made up entirely of prisoners. And it was something, once I saw the title of the group, I'm like, Alcatraz. And yes, okay, they're all prisoners, but they're stepping up for Ukraine. And I think that that's fantastic. And there's two ways you can send money to her, and one of them allows them to buy cigarettes. And I get it. Bad habits are hard to quit, especially in a war situation. So why not buy them some cigarettes if you like? But there's other ways to donate that will qualify as tax deductible thing. So anyways, fantastic. And the fact that she has the tattoos on her back is amazing, because the ideas for the tattoos are coming from the soldiers of the Alcatraz Brigade. And to me, that's a lot of trust. But as she said, not all ideas are approved, which is that seems like a logical thing, FireFella.
Now, I've got to say, James, I was inspired by the way she spoke about her troop and her squadron, because she's in a leadership role now, which I fully endorse, because the woman is just inspirational. And the way she talked about her team, her people, and her words, my boys, is what she calls them. And the way she looked at the development of some of them when they first came to her, and she took one look at them, one particular soldier, and she said, yeah, you're never going to make it. And it turns out that after loads of chats and a bit of culture change and education. He's now got his own company and is doing absolutely fine. So, as an inspirational leader, take the sex out of it, male or female. The way she spoke about what she does, how she does it, and how she encourages her people and protects them, just filled me with awe. And I'm so pleased that her particular fundraiser was fulfilled. I think she's got another one going now, but we'll get onto that later. But yeah, that one's closed, so I'm really pleased for her. Inspiring speech.
Indeed, yeah. I forgot about that guy. Yes. Well, so absolutely, we're looking for more people to donate, obviously, and I know many of you already are, and I'm sure some of you are already set up with a monthly donation to, say, War Doggo. That's great. And I understand if you're not contributing more money at this point to those kind of things, because we can always ask you to do things. And so there's a couple of things in the nest. And so first, yeah, please have a look at all the fundraisers. Think about which one, if you're not giving, give a little bit. A little bit is better than nothing. And then there are all these things at the very end, no, not the last one, second to last. No, it's the third one that was put into the nest. No, where is it? Oh, Dan. Oh, here we go. Dan, the Shadow Tanker Bonker. This is about Illumina21.com. I'm just telling you the name of the website, but this is about stopping the Illumina from what's that guy's name? The Russian guy, Deripaska, I think, or something like that. He owns that, and they're shipping the Illumina to Russia, and we can get them to stop by calling the people who really make a difference in Brussels, who decide what's going to go into the next sanction package. 69 MPs have signed on to that, which is fantastic. And let's hope that they pick up on this idea, and more calls are better. Absolutely is the case that's the way to go. And you might just say, why the hell should we send them anything? And that could be your point, including Illumina, because certainly glycerin, which is used in ammunition and other things, it's a dual use substance as well as Illumina is. Why are we sending them any of that? Why do we send anything to Russia? Allow it. We're allowing it at this point. Those are not sanctions. And Russia's fighting a total war every which way they can. And, to me, it's like, let's see what we can do to, make sure they don't get anything that's useful. The sanctions that we can get in place and effectively, enforce them, that's huge. So, and I think the Illumina and glycerin ones in particular are things that you can stop, because it's not like they're shipping Illumina to Russia in a box. It goes in a huge ship, and there's no other way really to do that effectively. So this is the kind of thing that can be stopped. So I think it's good to really focus on what is not just possible to pass a sanction for, but actually enforce. And we know how leaky some of them are, but this need not be. And then on the other side of the ocean, over there where I despair sometimes about our situation, we still have the ability to change what the United States is doing for or against Ukraine, mostly against at this point because of the terrible leadership that we have. You can call Congress, and I have not put it in the nest, but my timeline has a list of the bills pertaining to Ukraine that are open for votes if it only hits the floor, which it needs enough calls to get there. The one that is going to get to the floor, it was, the what do you call it? Oh my goodness. They did a discharge petition. In other words, because Mike Johnson once again wanted to hold up aid and deny the weapons that Ukraine needs. And they got through this. And so there will be a vote on House Resolution 2913. And that's the thing right now that should be the major focus. But there's a lot of other bills that are there. One of the things it will do will disallow the president from removing sanctions that are put there, on Russia. And that is a huge step. So there's something that we all can do. And I know that some people are doing other things, like our good friend Vatnik Soup, who's living in Ukraine, basically. And he's helping out all the time with volunteer activities. And he's helping us a lot by being the reporter on the ground, so to speak. So he often has a chance to chat with people and report on that. So anyways, lots of things that we can do to help. So that's my plea, FireFella.
No, just well done, James. So if you go on the Illumia 21 website, people won't, or probably won't realise, you don't have to be a member of the EU to email these people. You can be a human anywhere on the planet. And it shows you step by step how to go through it. So I would encourage everyone, all our American friends, anyone that has any links or thinks not goodly about Ukraine to do so, because we're absolutely can stop this. And Mockers and her team are down the Tank Command are doing such fabulous work. It needs support, people. So just spend a couple of hours reading through the website and sending a couple of emails. That's all it needs, just to keep the pressure on. Anyway, over to you, James.
You bet. Well, okay, we've done, I think, what we set out to do, and that was to host Decoding. And his analysis was excellent today, so I really do appreciate that. Go check out his websites if you like. There's more to learn there. And I just want to say again that his calling reflexive control. Provocation logic. I just appreciate that, because in some ways, to me, that's a more meaningful title. So anyways, I got that out. Okay. Well, now I think we're ready to go, unless there's anybody else. It's last call. All right, then. Let's see. Let me get in place before I do this. And also, let me remind you of what's coming up recently, and I'll do it before we do the sign off, which is usually how I do it backwards. So anyways, there, that, and there, and okay. Well, we closed out the day with this show, so nothing happening today. But Brent and Mockers are going to do Booms and Woe at 2 a.m. Eastern Time. And then following that, it looks like Genocide in Ukraine with Nancy and Heather will be at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And then shortly after that, they'll be This Week in Absurdistan with Smokey and I don't know who yet. Not sure. But anyways, that's what's coming up. So, yeah. And, well, that's it. So, Slava Ukraini.
Herem Slava.
Slava Nazi.
Smert Vilaham.
Smert Varaham. And so, folks, we also say, Pobachimus.
Pobachimus. Thank you, everyone. Lovely. Great space, James.
Thank you for covering. Much appreciated.